This is Kyle without his checklist.
This is Kyle without a checklist. I have a piece of paper next to me and pen. I have to write in my own handwriting right now. I have none of my to-do lists. It's a mess, Sean. It's an absolute mess. All right, announcements. To everyone just starting this recording, you missed it. Welcome to class. First thing, part 2 will be due on January 20th if you didn't already know that. So part 1 should be completed. You should be starting to work on part 2. If you have not completed part 1, whatever you need to do, get part 1 done. Part 2 is almost here. It is knocking at the front door, and then part 3 will be right there, which will be due on the 24th. So just a reminder there, the 24th is when the assignment is due, and that is that hardcore cutoff date. So please remember to do that. This next announcement might be incorrect. I forgot to double check. Let me see here. I am correct. Awesome. Announcement number 2, no class on Monday, because I believe for Martin Luther King Day, I want to make sure, but
You're
Sean,
correct.
awesome, thank you very much. I was like gonna double check there. I had my stuff pulled up, but yeah, no class on Monday for Martin Luther King Day. Fantastic there. Please enjoy your holiday. If you have not done part 1, part 2, or have not completed part 3, feel free to take that time to study, and don't forget all that stuff. After today, too, you'll have all the necessary ingredients to finish up the entire assignment number 1. So loops is that last bit of the puzzle piece that we need to finish everything. And then finally for tonight, as always, there will be a studio review. Tonight will be at 8 p.m. So if you'd like to join, it will be at 8 p.m. We'll be connecting back into this lecture room. Feel free to join us. Let's be working our way through there. By that time, hopefully I have my brain back, so we can actually have some decent conversation about stuff. All right, that being said, let me make sure I didn't forget anything. Oh, I did forget something, and this is extremely important. Clark wanted me to remind you all that a feedback survey has been sent out to Canvas. Please, please, please feel free to fill out that feedback and send it in. They take it extremely seriously, so any feedback will be tremendous help just to understand exactly how to either better tailor the course or essentially anything that you might think that you're missing. So please make sure you're sending that feedback and let them know how you're doing. With that too, if anyone ever has any feedback for me, feel free to send it over in the direct message, call me out, or if you just want to schedule one-on-one time. I know that I'm only human. If there's something in this class that I can do that can be better tailored to you and how you learn, please let me know, and I will definitely try to incorporate it into my lectures. All right, that being said, that is all I have for announcements. Any questions?
Yeah,
Jody.
part 3 of the assignment doesn't need functions? Because I read that chapter today, well, 10 anyway, because I thought that was due today as well, so I went ahead and read that today. Turns out it's not though. So okay. I guess part 3 of the assignment doesn't need that?
I'm going off of what Clark told me, so he said after this class, I'll double check here, see.
I mean, it's fine if it does because I read it, but I just am curious because.
Okay. Well,
you're not having to write. You're not having to write any new functions. You're filling in functions that are already there, correct?
Okay. That makes sense then. If that's what you, okay.
I have a quick question, Kyle.
Yeah, what's going on?
I was just a little curious about timing for the review in the studio, because I feel like last time I was still in like the small group while you were doing the like review. So can you talk a little bit about like maybe which one has the most value or which one? Because I feel like I would have to make a decision. Like if I want to come to your studio review, it means I can't go to the small group, right? Because it's happening at the same time, right?
They shouldn't be happening at the same time. So typically you get out of class at about 6:45 to 7. That's typically when I try to end my lectures. Then it's at 6:45 to 7 to about 8 or 8:15 that you should be in your small groups doing the studio. And then after that, that's when I do studio review. So sometimes those times can overlap because technically class ends at 8:30. That's why we try to start it a little bit before 8:30 studio review to try to get some people in there so we can still respect that time. But I understand that some things can overlap because we have so much material to cover in just these 3 hours. So as always, if you do miss some of it, feel free to stay in the small groups if you feel like that's more beneficial. If you want to come to the studio review, that's awesome. Feel free to join. But remember, they're always recorded. And we're always here to answer those questions too. So we try to make it a little bit easier where feel free to stay in your small groups. If you want to keep working collaboratively with them and you don't want to hear my voice for another hour, that's completely fine. You do not have to be in the studio review. It is recorded for your benefit so you can watch it whenever you want. Does that help out?
Yeah, thank you. I want to do both. And so it was kind of like, maybe my studio went a little bit over my small group, so maybe that was part of it, but I missed it. And I did go back and watch it, so that was pretty cool. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And as we move forward in class, I know right now it's kind of just all over the place because we are going through material and we're trying to line up with that. My lectures were made for a different kind of timeline, so I'm trying to match everything up. Every lecture's a little different, or excuse me, every cohort's a little bit different. So
I had a student last time do something interesting along these directions, and they pulled up Kyle's studio review on their phone while staying in small group. That way they were getting hints and tricks and stuff from Kyle as they were going along, and able to kind of tune Kyle out while they were doing stuff that they already knew, and then picking up and tuning into Kyle when he was going over stuff they didn't. So that was kind of interesting, and that was a good job.
I'm easy to tune out, so that's perfect. Awesome. All right, any other questions out there? Going once, going twice. Sold to more lecture. Let's do this thing. All right, everyone. Because you were so quiet, of course I got to start you out with all talking because you guys weren't even giving me any conversation at all. So please help me out here. Let's start out with some fun stuff. How would we create a variable named fave sandwich with the value of turkey sandwich?
Let fave sandwich equal turkey sandwich.
Sure, you know what?
Everybody
Favorites
going?
can change. Mine will never change. I will always love turkey the most. But I put cons for this one. But in this one, it's like ambiguous. It's whatever the designer or the coder wants to do. So yeah, you're absolutely right. Const or let fave sandwich, and I believe I heard it, equals turkey sandwich. Fun fact, if you go over to Asia or some parts of the European Union, they don't have turkey sandwiches. Why was this a mind blower for me? Because that's all I ever wanted when I was over there, and no one had it. So fun fact of the day right there. Let's keep going here. How about a deliciousness rating of a value of 5? How would I create this?
Deliciousness rating equals, deliciousness rating.
Perfect.
Equal 5. Yeah.
Very good. Equals 5. This is how we created the variable. Who can tell me what's that data type of fave sandwich?
It's a
Green.
it's a string.
It's a string. It's a data type of a string. Very good. And how about the deliciousness rating?
Number.
It's a number. Very good. Our strings and numbers. Can someone tell me another data type that they can think of?
Boolean.
Very good. Boolean, true or false. Awesome job, everyone. All right, now let's get into something a little bit more fun here. How about a variable containing the ingredients of bread, lettuce, tomato, and turkey? What are we going to use?
Array.
We're going to use an array. Very good. Help me create this array thing you just said.
Bracket.
Let ingredients or something like that.
I'm going to make this one const for this point, but it's okay. You could do let if you really wanted to. And so I said const, or you could use let. And then what comes next?
Food array.
Array.
In this case, it's ingredients. So ingredients equals.
And then
what comes
Square bracket.
What kind of bracket? We got three brackets. Square brackets. Remember, on your keyboard, if you look down there right now, you have 3 types of brackets. You have curly brackets, you have pointy brackets, and then you have square brackets. You use all of these encoding. So when you just say bracket, it's like saying, it's like me asking what kind of food you want, and you just told me food. I don't know what that is. So please make sure you always tell me what kind of bracket too, or just whenever you're doing developer speak. So you're absolutely right, everyone. Square brackets, fantastic.
Square.
Once we do that square bracket right there, what are we going to do next?
Quotes.
Everything
Quotes.
gets its
In quotes.
Quotes, and then, okay, I'm going to say quotes, and hopefully someone said bread there.
Yeah.
So we absolutely right.
That's fine.
And we separate them all by commas.
Comma.
Very good. And then what comes at the very
In
end?
the bracket.
Closing
Square bracket.
Closing bracket.
Very good.
Mayonnaise.
Don't forget to close your brackets. Every
Mayonnaise.
bracket should always have a friend. Who said mayonnaise? So say
Wouldn't
mayonnaise.
be.
Who else would have said
I
mayonnaise?
love mayonnaise. All right. I dip my fries in mayonnaise. I am that person. Love that
Miracle
stuff. or Miracle, either one. I don't differentiate. All right, awesome job, everyone. Let's take these variables and do some fun stuff and talk about some even funner things. Funner is a word. How about this one? How would I get the K out of turkey sandwich?
You would have to index. You would let
Console.log.
We're not going to do any console.logs. We're not going to see anything for human consumption. We're just going to talk about the pure code here. We want to get the K out of turkey sandwich.
Well, there are a couple of ways.
You could index
Bracket notation.
Index of.
Index of, that is very interesting. Index of will not get the K out of there. We'll actually get the index of K. In this case, it would be 3.
A sandwich bracket,
Ingredient.
and then the index of K, which is
square bracket, 0, 1, 2,
3, and then close the bracket.
Yeah.
Very good.
Dot
I heard a
index
few
of.
people there. So let's talk about it. First, we start with the variable name. We want to get the K out of turkey sandwich. Which variable contains turkey sandwich? The answer is fave sandwich. So we start with fave sandwich. The next, we want to get an individual character out of there. Index of, we'll find the index of K, but won't get the letter K out of there. Index of would return 3 in this sense. To get the actual string representation of K out of this string, we would use bracket notation normally. And that's what we'll do here. So to do bracket notation, as you already know, we start with the square bracket. And then I already heard that out there. We go ahead and put in the index of where that K exists.
3.
What is, very good. It is the index of 3. Because T is 0, U is 1, R is 2, and K is 3. In that case, we put 3 here in the square bracket. And then we close our square bracket. This right here is how we get the value of K out of turkey sandwich. Now, if you wanted to save that K for whatever reason, because maybe you want to spell Kyle with it, whatever, you would put that into a variable. So on the left-hand side here, you'd say, let my character K equal fave sandwich. And that's how you can utilize the data once you get it out of that string. So that's how we get an individual character out of a string there. Any questions about that? All right.
Kyle,
Yes,
can we use instead of 3, can we use index of parenthesis K?
You could technically do that because that will return you back 3. However, that's extra work on your end. So you absolutely can. And again, it's any way you want to paint the picture or create your own code. You're the developer. But always try to be the laziest developer you possibly can. So try to type out less. In this case, 3 would do. But of course, if you wanted to use that index up for whatever reason, feel free.
Thank you.
How about character at?
Say that one more time.
Character at?
Oh, character at?
At, yeah. Can we find the letter? Character?
But that would just tell you where it is, right? Not pull it out.
I believe that still returns the. I still believe that returns the index, so it will return you a numeric value. I'm trying to think.
That's character at.
So if you put console log save sandwich 3, it would then print out K, right?
Are you saying character at? I just want to make sure. I want to make sure you got that. Are you talking about the character at function?
At character at function, yes.
The char at right here, this one that you see on your screen?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Yeah, for this one, technically you could do that. You can get the char at that particular
and then
index.
Index, yeah. Then.
Yep. So you could technically do that if you'd like to, also. But again, bracket notation makes it just that easy too. But there are multiple ways in coding to do the same thing. So feel free to do this if you'd like. But I do highly, highly, highly recommend doing the bracket notation instead. All right, awesome questions so far, everyone. Let's keep going here. I gotta move back.
Do you mind if I ask a question?
Please go for it. Haley, yeah.
Is it reasonable to associate a string in your head with just an array of characters? I mean, does that analogy break down really quickly? You know, like, I mean, I feel like it operates pretty much the same way, like using that. No.
It does. So I'm gonna say it depends, and it depends on, and I hate when I have to say that. It depends on the context that you were in. You can think of strings as an array, but remember that arrays and strings are two different things, two different objects that have two different helper methods. So though you can think of it in the same kind of light, remember that they will have different functions on them that you can utilize. So they cannot be treated equally, but they can be thought of in the same kind of context or light in that regard. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I personally think of it as an array always. I think strings have just a bunch of characters next to each other in whatever language I'm in, but you have to respect it as well.
I see. Thanks.
Absolutely. Any other questions? I love this. This is awesome. Like, yes, keep throwing these things at me. And the words of Sean, trip me up, please. As you just saw, Rena, you just made me pull out documentation. I had to remember what char at was. So thank you for doing that. It's like, Kyle, please learn something. I'm making you all learn stuff. Please make me learn stuff. All right, let's keep going though. We got to stay on time here. Fave sandwich, bracket notation, 3, close bracket notation. Let's move on to this one. How would I get bread out of ingredients?
Ingredients, bracket 0.
Very good, everyone. Awesome.
Yes.
Using those square brackets, 0, closing those square brackets, using our variable name ingredients. Awesome. All right. So that
Kyle,
being...
Sorry, I just have
Yeah.
a quick question.
Yeah, what's
So ingredients bracket 0 won't just return 0. It won't just return B because bread itself is index 0, not just the letter B in this case, right?
Right, at this case,
Okay.
bread is at index 0. But the good question, I like that. Let's go ahead and play on that just real quick. Help me out, Biaja. How would I get the B out of bread in ingredients? Or anybody out there who can tell me?
In
Ingredients.
zero,
Zero.
both of them in brackets.
Yeah.
Very
0,
good,
comma, 0.
absolutely. No, not actually 0, 0. We'll go ahead and take a look at it real
bracket
quick.
0.
It's bracket
Separate
0,
brackets.
bracket 0, ingredients equals our array of bread. So how we would get that B out of there is console.log. This is, again, console.log is just to show us the result. It is not necessary to get it out of there. It's just for human eyes. So that's why I'm typing console.log here. Ingredients. This is how we get bread out. And then as you all have told me, to get the B out of there, we do another bracket notation of 0 there. If I wanted to get the R out, I would change this to 1. If I wanted to get the E out, I change this to 2. Now tell me this, what letter would it be? Oh, never mind, I don't have anything else in there. I don't want to give it away. Oh, let's do that. What would happen if I changed this to 3 here, and I change this to 1? What would it be returned, or what's going to console log?
Blank space.
Just a space.
It would just return a space. Very good. Yes, that was kind of a tricky one too. No one fell for it. Awesome. As you can see in our console log here, nothing looks like was returned, but if we go ahead and just highlight this, we see that there is a space hidden somewhere in my, well, the black void right there. There was a space there, I think you promised. But yes, you're absolutely right. It would return a space. I did 4, it should return a C. Now I press enter there. So there we go. Awesome job. So yes, you're going to use this. This is what we referred to in the last studio as a 2-dimensional array. Arrays can go up to 3 dimensions, typically is the most well-practiced version of it, but I have seen other instances where it goes beyond that. So, awesome, awesome. Any other questions on that? All right, let's keep going. It's gonna get fun now. So, this is something that we didn't really talk about too much, but the reading did. So I want to go over just a little bit. Tell me this, would this work?
Nope.
No.
No, why wouldn't it work? Who can tell me?
It's a string.
Strings are immutable.
Strings are immutable. Absolutely right. Let's go ahead and see this in action. I'm going to go and remove our past example here. I'm going to type in exactly what we just saw. Fave sandwich of 3. And then we're going to try to do it to G. So it's going to be turnkey sandwich if this did work. And then, of course, come down here and a console log out favorite sandwich after it's all been modified. There we go. So yeah, it goes sequentially. We run that, and we still see turkey sandwich well intact. Remember, when you see the word immutable, it means that it can't change. No matter how much I beg turkey sandwich to turn into a ham sandwich, it can never do so unless you reassign the variable. But we see that favorite sandwich is a constant, so it cannot. So to answer this question, no, this will not work. This is because, again, strings are immutable. We cannot change strings like this. So once fave sandwich is turkey sandwich, it will never change. To answer any questions out there too, if we change this const to let and reran it again, it will still be turkey sandwich. We cannot change strings in that form there. We cannot try to go into the array of the string and change it. So we have to reassign it, the whole string itself, to turkey sandwich or ham sandwich, whatever you want to do. So from that perspective, any questions on that?
Getting any error on that?
Yeah, I was thinking that too. It didn't show any red.
It did not, because JavaScript is your friend, or pretends to be. So it just looks at it, says, oh, I'm going to change this. JavaScript tries to change it, but its background's like, no, we're not going to change this. It's a string. It's immutable. So it just basically, in our minds, just skips over the line. It tries to, but like it basically just says access denied and moves on. No error shown. So this one right here will technically be a logic error.
Hey Kyle, I have a question if you don't mind.
Yeah, what's up, John?
Yeah, so correct me if I'm wrong, but why is it that the JavaScript made the string immutable? Because compared to other language, like aren't there other languages where, I mean, I could be tripping, but like other languages that make it so that the string is mutable?
So you're not tripping, because you're absolutely right. In other languages, such as Java, the one we'll be learning in Unit 2, technically strings are mutable in a sense. They're mutable, or they are mutable in a sense, because in JavaScript, they have the data type of character. Character in Java is actually a data type. In JavaScript, strings are the only kind of textual data type that we have. We only have to work with strings. So in the perspective of JavaScript, you can't change this variable string again, like how we just did, because you'd have to change the entire reference of, which we haven't really talked about yet. We'd have to change the entire reference of the variable itself, which once you do that, you basically just change the variable anyway. So that's why JavaScript says no. You cannot change it via the array. You need to do a full reassignment in order to change it.
Okay, I got you. If you were to try to change it, just like get a new reference, get a new kind of, I guess, new string, like.
Yeah, I mean, you'd have to do that, but it gets complicated and just honestly gets confusing from a coding perspective. So JavaScript's like, nah, we only have strings. This is how you do it. In Java or other languages too, more high-level languages, yeah, you can absolutely change strings in that sense. Awesome.
I have a quick question.
Yeah, what's up, Annie?
It's about the previous thing we were on. So is there like a difference, and will it affect what you're doing if you just print out like ingredients square bracket 0 versus doing console log? Because both of them will print it out.
So what was the first portion that you said would print out?
When you were trying to pull out data from what you were doing, you were like doing ingredient square bracket 0.
Mm-hmm.
And then to print out the data, you then went and you did console log parentheses ingredient square bracket 0 to print it out.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't have to do the console log to print it out. It'll still put it in there.
Are you talking if you put it down here?
Well, yeah, well.
Are you talking about, have you seen this in Replit?
Yeah, like you don't have to do the console log. Like you can skip that step.
So if you need to see something in the console, you always have to do a console log, no matter what. To what you're referring to possibly is a thing in Replit that they try to do to help you out, which does not exist in normal JavaScript. And
oh,
that
like
is
to keep it in there.
So go a little bit deeper there.
Like if you're saying like if you want to actually keep it in the shell or the console, whatever they call it. Because when I go into Replit and I type in ingredients, ingredient square bracket 0, and I click run,
right,
it puts it in there.
So real quick to show everyone what's being referred. So here, what I'm gonna do is say ingredients and 0. And this is going to be a very big thing that I do want everyone to see. We press run, and we're going to go ahead and see bread printed out there. This is not JavaScript. This is Replit trying to be helpful. This is only a Replit thing. This is only a Replit thing.
That's good thing.
That is the biggest thing I can tell, and that's the biggest confusing thing I've seen with Replit. This is not JavaScript. What Replit is doing is seeing that this is the last line and saying, okay, well, this is probably what they just want to see. So Replit shows it in the console on the right-hand side. Again, this is not JavaScript. You need a console log always to see something in the console.
Okay. I'm so glad I asked.
Great question. Yeah, very good
that's
question,
a
Andy. I try to kind of address that in some studio reviews, but I'm happy I get to talk about it in lecture. So yes, it's a big confusing thing about Replit here, and it's just, very annoying that they do it.
So it doesn't matter if we want to see the printout, we have to use the console log.
If you want to see something in the console, you must use console log.
Use console log. That's a good thing, yeah.
Yep.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you all. That was a great question there. All right. Let's keep moving on here. So we said this cannot work because strings are immutable. So let's talk about arrays then. Would this work?
Yes, it would.
It would work. Absolutely, because arrays are mutable in a sense. So let's exactly talk about why they are. So arrays can change in this context. We can take out bread and make our turkey sandwich with pancakes, which by the way sounds absolutely delicious. So let's go ahead and take an actual closer look at what's going on here, because I know we had some questions around it last time in lecture. So real quick too, I wanted to also point this out. We were able to change this to pancakes even though ingredients was const. So let's do a little bit deeper dive into this. So we have our const favorite sandwich here, and we changed to favorite sandwich. Would this work?
No.
No, absolutely right. Because const, once they are assigned, that is it. But as we just saw, if we have the const ingredients here, and we say that we want our ingredients of 0 to be pancakes, we can do this. We can make our turkey sandwich out of pancakes. So the question truly is here is why can we do that? So let's go ahead and do a quick little dive into that. We have our ingredients, our array. Think of an array as, like I said in studio review, as a shipping container, or you can think of it as just an Amazon box or something like that, some kind of container. Inside of that container, when you actually create your array, shows everything there. So in our example, we have bread, lettuce, tomato, and turkey. Awesome. So all of our strings are inside of this box. Now, with this, we were able to switch bread over to pancakes when we reassign that. So we just switched part of our contents in the box from one thing to another, from bread to pancakes. So what's the same is that we're able to change things inside of the box. But one thing I want to point out here is that what if we took away that box and we brought in a whole new one full of waffles, peppers, mayo, and chicken, the worst possible looking chicken sandwich maybe? I don't know, actually, if you minus that peppers, I would do with some mayo. Anywho, this box of a very unique sandwich creation, and we reassign it to ingredients, now this is a no-go. Because what we did is we took away that box and we tried to give it a brand new box. We tried to reassign it to a brand new container, a brand new array. This is not allowed. So as long as you're switching things inside of the exact same container, you're okay to do that. You're okay to manipulate the array as much as you want because the box itself that contains all the information does not change. So any questions
question,
there?
Kyle. Can
Yeah,
you change everything inside of the array? Like, could I just change, like, because it's still an array, if I just wanted to change everything inside of it, would that work without introducing a new one?
Absolutely. You can do whatever you want to the box. You can burn the box, you can spray paint the box, you can delete everything from the box, add everything you want to the box, as long as you don't change the box, as long as you don't try to reassign the array to a different array.
Okay.
What's in the box?
Right now, waffles, which, by the way, I did not even like until I was 25 years old. And then I realized they're the most delicious thing possible, especially when you put fried chicken on top. All right.
Would a good summary be that an immutable data type doesn't let you change the value without a reassignment, and then a const in the declaration doesn't let you change the pointer?
For those two separate statements, correct. Immutable, you cannot change it without a reassignment. And if it's const, you cannot, in what you just said, you cannot change the pointer of that variable to anything else. So yeah, you cannot change the reference to it. Absolutely right.
Can we add more things into array?
Absolutely. As we saw last class, we can pop things off or we can push things in there. That's completely fine too.
Okay, when it is when it is declared as constant, we can add still we can add, right?
Absolutely, because it's the box. You can do anything you want to your container. You can add, take away, change things inside of it, as long as the box itself, the container, does not change. So yeah, absolutely can.
I have a question.
Yeah, Joseph.
If you have an array that's, so like our array for our chicken sandwich or whatever, there's 4 items in it. Could you then define a 5th item in the array later and it would just add it automatically?
Yeah, as we talked about, go ahead.
So like if you were to say ingredients brackets 4 equals hot sauce, would that add it to that array of waffles, peppers, mayo, chicken?
No, because the 4th index does not exist until you push that data in there. So you need to make sure that you push a 4th index. Yes, because your JavaScript application is going to make space just for 4 things in that box until you tell it with that dot push to make a new spot for your hot sauce.
Okay.
Great question. Yeah, in that case, you will get a reference error if you see that, because you're trying to get it outside of the index, or sorry, outside of the array. Yep, awesome.
Thank you.
Absolutely. All right, everyone, let's keep going. Actually, I wish I remembered that I had this on the next slide because that's going to answer a lot of good questions here, but this is great for some more review here. How would we add onion to our ingredients? Let's make the best turkey sandwich we possibly can. Hopefully it's red onion, but anyway, how do we do this?
Can we just do
dot
push?
We need to say the name of the variable first, which is absolutely right, ingredients. And then I think I heard the second portion out there. We need to do a dot push. And then we include the name of the ingredient, which in this case is onions. And we close those parentheses and semicolon. Awesome. Who can tell me what the name of the push is? What kind of tool is that from last class?
Method.
Function.
I heard method. I'm about to kick you out. No, it's functions in JavaScript, methods in Java. JavaScript is functions. Awesome, awesome. Very good. All right, let's keep going here. What if we wanted to print out all of our ingredients on one line?
Add it to a string and print the string.
I like that idea, but I want to even go simpler. Let's go super lazy here. How would I just print out our array?
Console.log ingredients.
Or console log.
Absolutely right. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Console.log ingredients. I will just print out our entire array there. Let's go take a quick look at it. All it does here, if we just console log ingredients, there we go. Take that out, we run that. We're gonna just see bread inside of those square brackets there, so awesome. Then while I'm here, just to save us time, I'm gonna go ahead and add everything here. Lettuce, tomato, and then turkey. That's all right. Awesome. I actually spelled everything right good for me today. All right, let's go ahead and print that out and actually see a larger array there. Awesome. I think it's spelled everything. Yep, cool. All right, that's how we print everything out in one line. So we have that. But what if everyone in here, we wanted to print this out in a kind of different way? What if we wanted our output to look something more like this? One after the other. I should go ahead and do that too. So what if we actually wanted to print not on one full line like we just saw in Replit over here, all up there? What if we wanted things one after the other? I want a checklist of what I need to get at the store to make my turkey sandwich. Well, let's explore this real quick. We have our 4 ingredients in our array here. Let's actually talk about the indexes. Answer to yourself, what is the index of bread, lettuce, tomato, and turkey? As always, as developers, we start with the number 0 and we count forward. So it's 0, 1, 2, and 3. Bread is at 0, lettuce is at 1, tomato is at 2, turkey is at 3. Now take a close look at this. We just named all the indexes of the stuff in our array. Now if we think back to our kindergarten math, it looks a lot like we're counting in this. So in this case, we need something that can count for us besides ourselves. So we need to actually, in order to get this kind of output, we need to create something that will count to 3. Now that's interesting. We actually need to count something to 3. Remember, only questions, please, in the lecture questions channel. Okay, I love it. I love it. Just gotta remember. Just because I always get a ding right there. I'm like, ah, it's like bright light. All right, so let's go ahead and explore what can we use to count to 3 here. So let's bring those indexes back there, 0 to 3. So answer to yourself here is that what do we need to start with? What number do we start with? In this index right here, sorry, in this situation, we are starting with the number 0. So to start out writing this thing that we're going to create, we're going to just say, all right, I want this variable to be 0, because this is where I want to start. So I'm going to call this thing I. I is short for index. So just to remember, everybody out there, please, we are only using lecture questions channel for questions. Please, 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 if there's anything, I have to get dinged every single time I see that. Trying to focus, please, 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 please use lecture chat for general chat. If you want to answer on there, that's absolutely fine. All the questions, I promise I'll let you know when it is time to answer any questions. Most of it's just rhetorical. Answer to yourselves, but please, please keep answering out there to yourself. I will ask whatever. All right, let's keep going. So yes, we need to start with a number. We need to start to count to 3 here. We start with 0. So awesome. We're going to call let I create this variable. I is short for index. We're going to start at 0. Awesome. All right, perfect. So then so for this case, in order to count here, what we would typically create from what we've known so far, we say let I equal 0. In this case, I'm going to console log I. So in this case, I now have an output of 0. So what do we do to get to the next number? I'm going to go ahead and unmute everyone. What would we do to get to the next number? How would we get to 1 here? Who can tell me?
I plus plus.
I plus plus, I love it. I'm going to go even simpler here, but I like that abbreviation. For this one, I'm going to just do I equals I plus 1. But you're absolutely right. I plus plus will definitely work too. All right. Continuing on, so for this one, now I is 1 because we're going sequentially. So to print out the next number, we need to print out I. So in this case, we have now counted from 0 to 1. That's what our output looks so far. So now how do we increment again? We do the same exact thing. So we just do I equals I plus 1. So we are now turning 1 into 2. We console log that out. Now we're doing 2. We do the same thing. I is now 3. We console log out 3. And there we go. We counted all the way to 3, 0 to 3. Congratulations, we did that. But the question is, what if I ask next to count to 5,000? Now, is that something we would probably want to do? Would you want to type out all these lines of code all the way out to 5,000 if we really needed to count to it? Absolutely not. We are not paid enough to go all the way down to 5,000. So we need something that can actually count a little bit for us. And I saw some people in there, you already know what we're going for. So yes, stick in there. We are about to talk about the funnest thing in programming. All right, so look at this code that we have on the screen. Take a very close look. This is going to be something that's very obvious to developers as you move forward, and it's something that we need to start looking for here. And it's repetitive code. If you look at this, these 3 lines are repeated all throughout the little algorithm we just ran to count to 3. So wouldn't it be nice if there was something out there that could just do this repetitive code one to 3 times or 1,000,000 times for us? Well, luckily there is, and of course, spoiler alert, it's the name of our actual lecture here. We need something to be able to loop over it. So we're going to explore exactly how we can have something loop over these 3 lines of code. In order to do that, we use the tool of loops, but a very specific type of loop. In this case, we're going to learn first about the for loop. The for loop is something that we're going to be using to iterate over lines of code X number of times. So let's go and explore that. For the for loop, what we have here is that we start with the keyword for, and then we include a parentheses. After that, we are going to include the variable, a very important one. Let I equal 0, the number that we're starting at. Then another very important thing we need to do in the for loop, we need to separate some things that the for loop asks. How we separate those things is with a semicolon. So we say let I equal 0, and we separate the semicolon. Then after that, we say, where do we want it to end? In this case, I want you to continue to iterate until I is 4 or greater. That's how we say that here. I want you to iterate while I is less than 4. Is 3 less than 4? Yes. Is 4 less than 4? No. So when I gets to 4, it will stop. The for loop will be like, all right, I'm out. So we now know where it starts, and we know where it ends. What's in the middle? We have one more thing that the for loop asks. Essentially, what to do while it's looping. So every time it goes back up there, what should I do to I? In this case, we want you to increment by 1. So in this case, this is creating a for loop right here. This is the counter mechanism. This is the counter thing, the thing that counts right now up to 0 to 3. And then we actually have to have stuff inside of it. So just like our if statements, we need to include curly brackets to tell it where the code will live, or the code will be, the things or the lines of code you want it to iterate over. In this case, we're going to take that last line there, that console log, and we're going to move it into that for loop. So now we've just written something here that will actually help us out with a console log. So let's go ahead and dive into this a little bit deeper here. Let's go ahead and look at each portion here. The first part that we just talked about was this let I equal 0. Remember, I is short for index. That is a big keyword that we were using with arrays. So index, remember index. But the biggest thing about this is that, remember, this is what number we start on. We're starting at 0. Because we want to loop over an array of ingredients. Arrays start at 0. Hence, we want to start at 0 on this counter. Then right here, I less than 4. This is when it should end. Essentially, it should keep looping until this conditional is false. It should keep looping until this conditional is false. So as long as I is less than 4, this loop will continue to iterate. And then finally, what to do between each loop. What should I do? You should increment I every single time it iterates over the for loop. And then of course, inside those brackets is exactly the code that we placed there. So that is what we do inside of those brackets. We place as much code as we want to iterate over every single time. So that right there is the introduction into the for loop. So let's go ahead and see that in action. I'm gonna come over here and we're gonna create our for loop here. So talk me through it. What keyword do we use to create our loop?
4.
Very good, 4. And then what portion do we start with?
Let
equals 0.
Very good. Let I equal 0, where we're actually going to start. And then tell me if I wanted to count up to, in this case, we have an array of 4 up here. So we need to iterate 4 times. So what should be my next portion here?
I
is less than
less than
What's the number?
5.
4.
5.
How many?
No, it's 5.
I mean, it's less than equal to 4 or less than 5.
No.
Either way.
Or less than 5.
than
Yeah.
4.
5.
Is less, I is less than 4.
4.
Why?
It'll be 4. Because our numbers in coding start at 0, not 1.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
We forget about 0 sometimes. This is the trickiest part right here, is that remember in coding, we start at 0, which is a whole extra number that we're used to. So yes, it was gonna be less than 4, very good. And then what do we do in the middle?
I
Do
plus plus.
I plus plus, but in this case, we're gonna do I plus 1 just for one more time here, just to see it. In this case, we're gonna do console.log I. And let's go ahead and see what happens now. I'm gonna go ahead and comment out our console log from previously and go ahead and run this. In this case, what we get back is 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4 on each individual lines. So awesome. We just got to see this for loop in action. So before I open up for questions, we're gonna go through just a little bit more talking about it. So we just saw our console log in action. So let's go ahead and take a look real quick at what this for loop is actually doing. So let's deep dive into what it's thinking and JavaScript is thinking with loops. So you just saw it count from 0 to 3. Awesome. But what's actually happening? I've told you since the start of class, algorithms move sequentially. I pinky promise, I have not lied to you yet. Knowingly. Probably there's some white lies out there, but to this day, I have not lied to you. So algorithms still move sequentially from line 1 to line whatever you're done with. So let's take a look at what the for loop is doing then, because it's doing something different. The for loop will start at the for keyword. It will say it needs to start at I equals 0 and go till whenever that middle conditional is ending. So in this case, the for says, okay, I'm going to start at 0. Let's do that. I equals 0 right now. It moves down to the console log and says, okay, I 0 right now. So it prints out 0 to the screen as we see below. 0 is printed out. It moves down to that ending curly bracket. What it does next is it moves back up to the for loop and asks,
Middle.
what is I? I is less than 4, or sorry, what it does next after each iteration is it increments its I. So now I equals I plus 1. I is now the value of 1. Then it checks the middle portion. Is 1 less than 4? That is still true. So if it's true, it moves on and loops again. Console logging now 1 out to our terminal. After it's done console logging, it goes to this ending curly bracket and it goes right back up to the top, back up to the for keyword. It increments I again and asks the same question. I plus 1, so it's now going to be the value of 2. Is 2 less than 4? That is still true. So it moves on and console logs it again, prints out 2, goes down to our ending curly bracket, loops back up, does the same thing. Is 3 less than 4? True. Console log I, move down to that last curly bracket, and then it comes back up. Now I plus 1 is now I equals 4. The value is now 4 of I. Is 4 less than 4? No, it is false. So if it's false, the for loop's like, okay, this conditional is no longer true. I'm done with you. And it moves out of the for loop, hence giving us the output that we just saw in Replit, 0, 1, 2, and 3. That's what's going on in the JavaScript mind. It's not magic or anything. What it's doing is iterating over a part of a task. Back into our ingredients days when we were talking about baking the cake, think about if you were making bread. You're gonna mix the ingredients, but the directions will tell you in a certain part of that is knead the dough until it's at a certain whatever. You're gonna continue to knead the dough until it has met the criteria. You're just in a portion of the recipe that needs your attention for a little bit longer before you can move on to the next portions. That's what's going on in for loops, or any loops in general. You're looping over an part of the task until it is done, and then you can move on. So this right here is an introduction into loops and specifically the for loop. So now I'll open up for any questions. I see a couple here in our lecture questions, so I'm gonna go ahead and do that. What happens to the words? Why did the numbers show? Derek, we're actually not using anything with the array just yet. We are just console logging I. As we saw up there, I is 0, and then it will increment every single time. So we're not actually doing anything with the array yet that contains those words. So we're just console logging the number at this point. Oh, and then thank you very much for replying back to that. All right, any other questions about this? And feel free to type it in the lecture questions channel as well. And also just yell at me too if you just want to chit chat.
So for the console log, you're saying basically, so that's just to make sure that the code is running properly as we're writing it?
Exactly right, because again, console log just for human consumption. I just want to make sure our for loop is counting right now. We have not done anything yet to print out bread or turkey to our console. We are just now making sure we have something that can count. So yeah, sorry about any of that confusion there, but
if you,
oh, sorry, Jody, give me 1 second. Henry, does that help you out?
Yeah, yes, it
Okay,
does.
cool.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Sorry about that. What's up?
No, it's okay. I was just telling him that if you change the console log statement to say console log ingredient sub I, it will print the words.
So we're not exactly there yet, Jody, but you're absolutely correct.
Like it'll actually print the words then.
Yep. All right. Any questions about the stuff that we've gone over just yet? Does it always have to be I? Ben, your question, does the I always have to be I, or can it be another variable name? Remember, the variable names are up to your creativity. If you want to call it cookie, call it cookie. If you want to do it pizza, call it pizza. But you can change I to whatever you want. Remember that you have to have variables that are always unique in the context that you're in. So that being said, I do want to point one thing out, is that if we're inside of this loop, and I say let I equal pizza, this is not allowed. Let's see if Replit will actually properly yell at me. There we go. So make sure that your variables are always specific or very unique in their naming. That's why we stick with I. I's are typically used for for loops, or J for nested for loops, because you can do for loops inside of for loops. But I is typically what they start with. Regardless, I would highly recommend always doing a single character as your variable name to save you space and time as you're using it. But again, you can name it whatever you want.
If you name it I and then you had another for loop like below, could you use I, or would you have to change it to like J? Or like, is it just when it's embedded?
Only when it's embedded, it has to be unique. But if you have two for loops just like this, is this what you're referring to?
Yes.
You can do that, yes, because
Okay.
they are in two different contexts.
Got it.
So
Okay.
it's gonna, yeah, because by
Okay, cool.
line 12, yeah, no worries, yeah, perfect, awesome question here. Because by line 12, it's gonna forget about what I is. So you are absolutely right. Awesome question there.
So why did when you had it the error, it said it was actually throwing a reference error on line 10 and not when it threw an error when you, yes, if you do there, it actually says it's on line 10 and it's about accessing I before initialization.
Yes,
so is that,
because it thinks
it
that
like
the I you're referring
folding?
to is, oh, go ahead, Reed.
Is it like folding out the I declaration that's in the for loop?
It is thinking that inside of these curly brackets, this I that you're referring to is the most inner one. So it's just JavaScript looking from the inside out. So essentially, it's just thinking that line 12, that this error is saying it thinks that a line 11 is the I you're referring to up here. So if we take this, I think it will give us possibly, let's see what we do here. I think it will now give us a different, no, it actually does that. JavaScript sometimes. So with this, for that reference error, if you try to use I or whatever, it will think that it will just get confused essentially in that context. So the biggest thing about it is just make sure that you do not use I or whatever your for loop is going over inside of those contexts. It will get very confusing. JavaScript will try to help you. What JavaScript does with that information is whatever JavaScript is feeling at that moment. So it all depends on however you code that out. It will, as we just saw, it will print out pizza 4 times if we move it over the other way. But it is extremely dangerous to do so. So Raiden, if you see that reference error with that, it just means that something's in your for loop. You have to kind of take every error with a grain of salt because it doesn't know specifically what you're thinking logically. So it'll just kind of give you an indication of what might be wrong. Does that kind of help out? I know it's not the best answer I can give possibly, but hopefully that gives some clarity.
So it's kind of like splitting the scope or something?
Basically, it's going to have scope confusion. So yeah, it's going to have no idea what I it's referring to. Again, JavaScript tries to be helpful and tries to, it basically, I forgot what it's called. It's like variable shadowing or something like that. But essentially, 2 variable names overshadow each other and they go by priority, blah, blah, blah. It's going to get JavaScript confused and basically produce either a syntactic error or just a logical error. So we can always dive deeper into it at the end of class if you want, but yeah, I highly recommend just really watching out for all that. Yeah, Raiden, sorry, if that does not help, just let me know. I'm absolutely happy to dive a little bit deeper into it. I just don't want to say too much right out of the gate with it. But I did see we have one quick question here, two quick questions. Do we need to use the let in loops? Yes, because you are reassigning that variable. If you put a const here, we will not be able to do that because remember I equals I plus 1, we're reassigning I as we iterate. Can we reassign consts? We cannot. So therefore, if we do that, we'll actually get an error. Hopefully. I say that, but you never know what Replit and JavaScript are going to do to me. Or Replit won't even run because it just knows that it's a live demo right now. Come on. And then as we do this, but that is that you do not want to use a const, you want to use a let. I'll run that real quick. Yeah, reassignment to a constant variable there. All right, how do we create a loop that sorts an array into 2 arrays? It seems like a very specific question. We can possibly go over that in studio review, but if you want to do that, sorts array into 2 arrays, It depends on what the two arrays need to be. It depends on what the first array is and what the sorting has to be. So all of that question, we'd have to be very, very specific on that. If you want to ever sort two arrays, if you just want to do odd numbers and even numbers on two arrays, you can loop over the full array. You have two different arrays outside the loop that you just kind of assign to. But Kayla, if you want to get a little bit more into that, we can at the end of class. Jody.
Who asked that question?
I believe Kayla on lecture questions.
Okay, I'll post a piece of code. I have a piece of code that does it. I'll post a piece of code to show her what it looks like, because I actually have a piece of code that does that. So.
Okay. Sounds good. Is this similar to merge sort? Henry, is that a question directly at the for loop?
Yeah.
So
I didn't know if that has anything to do with that at all.
I had to think of my merge sorts. Yeah, I mean, technically, yeah, you're going to use iteration in any kind of sorting algorithm. So for loops is just the general building block to do any kind of sorting to do any kind of sorting whatsoever.
Okay.
So it will play a part in it.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, absolutely. All right.
I had a quick question. It was back on do we need to use let in loops? I think they were asking if you'd even need to put an assignment to it at all. Because on some of them, you could just do I equals 0 and it was still giving me the same thing even if I wasn't putting let.
Yeah, that's JavaScript helping you. It is the safest practice to put let in front of it.
Gotcha. Cool. Thank you.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, I will always try to code with best practices in mind. As we've seen multiple times during lecture, that JavaScript will try to help as much as possible. Always remember, include let in there. Always doing our practice with constant lets, stuff like that. But no, for that answer particularly, always make sure you include your lets in for loops. Very good question there. All right. Great questions, everyone. Let's keep going just a little bit more. I want to try to stay on time, but you know what? I can't deny these questions. Like, honestly, just keep throwing them at me. All right, but let's go ahead and take a moment. I'm going to ask you all some questions. I'm going to bring those ingredients back in here. We have our bread, lettuce, tomato, and turkey. Awesome. Why is my stuff not going? There we go. All right. So I'm going to bring those indexes too, just to help us out. And so now we know how to count, which is awesome. Now we're looking at our ingredients array. So we're going to actually work to do this portion on ingredients. So we actually, instead of seeing 0 through 3, we actually want to see some ingredients on our screen. So let's go ahead and talk about that real quick. To answer that, what number are we going to be starting on in this particular array?
0.
Very good array. Let's start that at 0. Awesome. Then as always, to create that for loop, we're going to say let I equal 0. And then for this 2, what number do we end on?
3.
Very good. 3. Absolutely right. So 3, though, is equivalent to what exactly? Who can give me something else that we're talking about here that 3 is equivalent to?
Ingredients dot length.
Very good. Absolutely right. Ingredients dot length. The length of the array is 3. So instead of using 3 here, we're going to use the length of the array. Awesome. And so as we're looping here, what are we going to have to do? What do we do between each loop for a for loop?
Increment the I.
Very good. We're going to increment the I. Originally, we were saying I equals I plus 1, but you all out there already know this abbreviation to save us a few lines of code. So instead of I equals I plus 1, we're going to be just using I plus plus from now on. So in our for loops, we're typically using this. So speaking of for loops, let's go ahead and build one with all this information we just supplied. So as always, we start with keyword for here. And the first thing we start with is where to begin. Awesome. Let I equal 0. All right. And then we're going to do semicolon to separate them.
Semicolon.
Very good. Yes, we're going to do the semicolon there. And then I equals or less than ingredients.length. This is where we're going to be ending the for loop. Awesome. And then finally, semicolon I. Basically what we're going to do between each for loop and then close that parentheses. And then awesome, everyone. I heard everyone talking along there. Fantastic. All right, and then our final thing, what do we need to do? Well, we already have one of them in there.
Console.log.
Very good. We're going to console.log with I. Very good. In this case, we're going to still count 0, 1, 2, and 3. But now, if we look at this, if the array grows or shrinks, our for loop will also do the same. So if we switch out this for ingredients dot length, and we now add hot sauce in here, just like that. If we run this, make sure I didn't everything. Oh, I can actually write the console.log, and there we go. So you can actually see something awesome. Go, press run, and now we see we are actually counting to 4. So now we made our for loop more dynamic. So as our array shrinks or grows, our for loop counts more or less. So awesome. Let's keep diving into one more thing here. What, or how would we get bread out of ingredients again? What would we do?
Ingredients. Square bracket.
Square bracket, very good. And then what number?
Zero.
Very good, 0, awesome. How about lettuce?
Ingredients.
One.
Very good. How about tomato?
2.
Ingredients.
Very good. And then finally, turkey.
Mayo's not there.
And then finally, turkey to do ingredients, square bracket, 3. Awesome, awesome. Now take a close look at this one now. It looks a lot like we're counting once again. We start at 0 and we work our way down to 3. So now that we're kind of identifying that we're able to count here, indexes are always going sequentially, the things that we want to print out, and we have something that we can actually count with, we can combine this to finally get that ending input that we were talking about previously. So in this ingredients.length, or sorry, the for loop that we just built with ingredients.length, we can actually call to the ingredients one by one using the thing that's actually counting. So in order to do that, how would I prepare that here in the for loop? What variable am I going to start with?
Ingredients.
Very good, ingredients, because that's what we actually want to print out to the screen. We're not printing anything else out yet because we don't have a console there, but ingredients. So then we actually want to call to each ingredient individually. To do that, we're going to be using things in the array. How do we access things in the array?
Square bracket.
Very good. Square bracket, awesome. Absolutely right. We need to include that thing that's counting 0 to 3. That thing is truly I. So we add I into those square brackets, and then we close the square brackets up. I is the thing that is incrementing. It is turning from 0 to 1 to 2 to 3, whatever the length of the ingredients is. Hence, we put I inside of that bracket. We put that variable inside of the square brackets. Once we do that, we want to see the actual ingredients on the screen on the console. Therefore, we use a console.log. So once you do that, we're able to print out a nice, pretty string. So let's go ahead and see that. So in here, we said what variable we're working with?
Ingredients.
Ingredients.
And then finally, what do we need to put at the end here?
Brackets I.
Very good. Awesome. Let's go and run this and see what happens. Oh no, because I can't spell ingredients. There we go. Run that. Awesome. There we go. We see bread, lettuce, tomato, turkey, and hot sauce all printed out on individual lines. Remember, we added hot sauce within one of those examples just to see our array grow and shrink and see how ingredients.length affects that. We're going to just take that out, see the original one, and that's exactly what we wanted to get for our inputs. Awesome. So any questions up to this point?
Usually we declare the variable only once, right? But why in for loop I is getting declared more, like using let again and again?
Yeah, so actually it's only being declared once. Pinky promise. It's only ever being declared once. This is only ever seen once by our JavaScript, by our compiler. And this is what happens every single iteration, and then this. So it only gets declared ever one time. That's a very good question. So I promise you, this will only ever be created once and reassigned every other iteration.
No, I'm asking for the next for loop, why again we are declaring?
Oh, so if you do, are you saying with another for loop here? Like that?
Yeah.
So in the context of this for loop, I is being declared. So what do I mean by that? If I do a console.log.i out here, what do you feel like would be printed out?
1, 2, 3.
3.
Go ahead and run what happens.
Oh.
We see that I is not defined. Inside of the curly brackets is a whole nother context. So inside of here,
Inside.
I is only defined within the for loop. So I only exists within those curly brackets. The second we step out of the for loop, it no longer exists. Hence why we can use it down here on line 14 again. Because at line 12, once we're down here, I has never been heard of ever in its life. So after we're outside those curly brackets, that variable gets forgotten about.
Okay.
Same with this. Say if we said let pizza, or let's food equals pizza, just like that. If I try to call to food down here, and I run that, I'll get the same exact error. Because inside of these curly brackets, once we're outside of them, that variable never existed. So context only know about what's inside. So we only know what's inside of those curly brackets when we're inside of them. So awesome, great questions there. Anything else? Any other questions?
I had one about the brackets. So if I assigned another variable inside of there, like say I just had a variable on top that I put, I still have I, but I'm doing like an array or something. Why is it that then whenever I declare it outside of the curly brackets, it still goes off? Is it because of the things I'm assigning while I'm in the curly brackets? I thought you said that was like a different plane of existence. I'm sorry if that's confusing.
No, that is a great question.
Bad.
To do that, let's go ahead and create a pretty string to answer your question. Let's go ahead and create an ingredient string that names all of our ingredients out on one string itself. So we're going to create a string here that takes in bread, lettuce, tomato, and turkey, and we're going to turn it into this string. The ingredients are number 0 bread, number 1 lettuce, etc. So how can we exactly do that? Well, for this case, what we would typically start with in the for loop, I don't know why that was first exactly, but we need to create a string literal for my message. So I think my stuff is out of order here, or I'm going absolutely nuts. But, oh, you know what? I forgot. Didn't in the last lecture, the last cohort, didn't go over what string literals do. So we're going to go over that. What we need to use in this kind of thing is we're going to be building a thing called my message. And we're going to be using a temperate literal in order to create the string. To do that, we're going to be using these things, which again are temperate literals, and we use backticks in order to do that, which are the things here. If you not know where that is, that's usually above your tab on the left-hand side of your keyboard, right there underneath the tilde. So this is what we're going to be using here to actually create that. So when you are inside the temperate literal, you are able to insert information into the string right then and there without having to append it with the pluses and everything how we usually did before. How to insert information is we start with a symbol, that symbol being that $sign right there. That's how we denote, hey, we're about to insert information into this string, be prepared for it. So that is denoting a string literal right there. So that $sign and whatever's in the curly brackets, it will actually include that information. So that I, whatever I is, as in the for loop is 0, 1, 2, 3, etc., will be included inside of the string when it's being built. So real quick, we're going to go ahead and see that temperate literal in action as we build this pretty string. Real quick, what was that string? Yeah, the ingredients have to be. So we need to be able to create this list. So it's going to say the ingredients need to be. Now we're looking at this for loop here. We're able now, and I'm going to go ahead and turn it back to what we were seeing before here. So we can say console.log ingredients. LJ, there we go. Ingredients of I, awesome. Just like that. So we print this out again. We're going to see every ingredient on the line. But instead of just one after the other, we're going to create a message to display. Now remember, as we move forward in our code, we always go sequentially. You start at line 1, go down, except for when we get to loops, we iterate over a certain number of lines until it's done. That's what we know so far. So to this point, we need to start creating our message on a specific line. Does anyone know where we can start at least creating our message so we can remember it as we move throughout our code, even after the for loop? Anyone have an idea of an area we could put that? We'll call it my message.
Before the for loop?
Before the for loop, absolutely right. Yes, we are going to put it, we can put it anywhere above here. So in this case, I'm just going to create a variable here on line 9 and say let my message. And in this one, I'm going to start by assigning it the first part of the message. It's going to say the ingredients are. Chicken basketball ingredients today. There you go. The ingredients are, and then colon. Awesome. So I just started out my message there. So how can we actually go through now and add all of these ingredients to the string itself? Well, as we know, we need a loop through the array. So in that case, we're going to be using the for loop to actually build upon the string. I heard someone out there, I think they're going to say the same thing. We're going to use the loop to build the string for us. So in order to do that, we're going to be adding on to the my message in order to add that. We're actually not going to be doing any console logs just yet. We need to build the string first before we're actually able to console log it for human consumption. So we're going to build our string first, and then we'll console log. But I like where your head's at. You're just a little ahead of me right now, but you are absolutely right. We will have to console log it here in a moment. But let's go ahead and finish building the string first. To do that, we're going to start by saying my message down here in the for loop. And now we need to actually add the ingredients to my message as the loop iterates. So what I can do is I can say equals my message, and then plus, and I can put my string literal in there, or for whatever string I want to append it to, or instead of that, I'm actually going to simplify it a little bit and say plus equals, another operator, which just means I want you to add whatever's on the right-hand side to my existing variable on the left-hand side. So that is what we're going to do there. So my message, so I'm going to append something into my message, and the string literal we just saw, I'm going to utilize. So to use that string literal, I do the top left under the tilde, the back tick there, and what it wanted to do was put the number sign, it said, the number of the index, and then the name of whatever's in the array. So I'm going to say pound sign there. And then how do I start inserting information into a temperate literal or to a string literal?
Dollar.
Dollar sign, very good. And then what comes after the dollar sign?
Curly bracket.
Curly bracket, very good. And then instant here, I insert the information. In this case, I want to do I. Now let's go and see what this looks like just real quick. As I heard before, we should do a console log, so I like that idea. I'm going to say my message. Let's see what happens right now. I'm going to run this. And we see that the ingredients are $, pound sign 0, pound sign 1, pound sign 2, pound sign 3. It's not exactly what we want. We want a little bit more information. So we need to actually insert what's in the array inside of the string. So in that case, what do we need to add into this temperate literal or the string literal right here?
Ingredients, square bracket.
Very good.
I
need to start with my dollar sign first. Dollar sign, but I love it. Dollar sign, and then don't forget our curly brackets there to tell our temperate literal that we're going to insert information into it. And then I believe you said exactly what I was looking for, ingredients, and then square bracket, I close square bracket. So I'm going to go ahead and run this and see what happens. Look at that. We're getting a little bit prettier here, but we see that all of our information is a little munged up here. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to actually just put a nice space right in the front. Oh, you know what? I'm going to put it in the back. I'll put it in the back. Either one, doesn't really matter. First space there, and press run. Oh, and then one more space right there. Cool. We just got a prettier string with all of our information created using this for loop. And also of course, our string and temperate literals. So any questions on this?
So I just have,
oh yeah, go ahead.
I just have one question. So you put the pound sign and the the pound sign, the dollar, and the I, you put the temperate literal in the front because you wanted the index to be next to each word?
Yeah, so the pound sign is not necessary. That's only to show, it just says number 0, number 1. So it's just telling the user, hey, this is what's in the array. Number 1, number 2, number 3. We can actually take out that pound sign. If it gets confusing, we can rerun that. The pound sign was just there for us to see it. But what you need
pound sign was just part of the string.
Correct. What you need to have in there for sure is the dollar sign and the curly brackets. That will tell your string that you're about to insert information. That is the part you must have in there if you want to insert information into it. Remember, you can only do this, the dollar sign curly brackets, when you're using the backticks.
Okay,
So,
is that,
yeah. Yes. How about if you want to print out a new line? It's everything.
If you want to put it on a new line?
New line, yeah. Just like first line should be bread and then up, down, letters.
Yeah, you can use a new line character then. You can do a \n. If you ran that,
Yes.
you will be able to see
Okay.
that all within a list form.
Okay. All right. Thanks. Okay.
Yes. And then Henry, I think I heard you as well. What's going on?
She asked the same exact question I was gonna ask.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I have a, oh, go ahead. I also have a question. I think I'm confused. The way I'm reading it or picturing this in my mind is that it would read out the ingredients are bread, the ingredients are lettuce, the ingredients are tomato, and I think I just don't understand why it wouldn't repeat my message over and over.
Because we are appending my message to itself every time. So if what we did here is that we just said my message plus that. So that's what we did. We're going to rerun this just to see the same thing here. So my ingredients are, so remember, everything goes sequentially. Nothing comes out of the air. Up here, line 9, it's declared the ingredients are in my message. So here at line 10, the value of my message is the ingredients are. We come down to the for loop. And then we say my message, which is still the ingredients are, plus this portion right here. So my message plus 0 bread, because that's what it's at 0. Then we come, actually.
I get it.
Okay. Why am I going? Yeah, okay. I was like, why am I? Yeah, sorry, I got myself confused for a second. It's like, is it? It's like, no, it's just you just need probably copy Kyle. No, so yeah, it's just appending each ingredient to it, so it's building upon the list as we move forward. So if we want to see kind of an action too, we can go ahead and do this. So we can actually see it being built here. Let's go ahead and see.
Okay.
So that's it being built right there. So it's being iterated every single time. So we're actually seeing inside of the guts of the for loop right now. That's it being built piece by piece right there. Does that kind of help out?
Oh yeah, it does. Thanks.
Absolutely. And then John, this was your original question too, though it was also part of a lecture example, which I love. I just want to make sure that this helps answer that and we're going in the right direction there.
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome. All right, any other
And
questions?
can we have different variable initializations in the for loop? Like let I equal to 0, j equal to 0, and use that in the for loop?
You would not want to use I because I is already declared up here, keeping control of our index. We always want to keep our variables absolutely unique. So
No, can we use different variables like more variables like I equal to 0, j equal to 0,
so
and I plus plus j plus plus in the for loop?
So like if we wanted to say like this, the let food pizza kind of example, are you looking for? So declaring variables inside of the for loop?
No, it's like let I equal to 0, then let j equal to 0 inside that curly braces, inside that brackets.
Okay, so we're right down here on line 12. Tell me what to type.
I'm telling, like for.
So you want to create another for loop?
And no, in the same for loop, let I equal to 0. After that, can we use let j equal to 0?
Oh, you're asking, can you put another one?
Can we use different variable initializations there?
No, we only want to ever declare what's going to be keeping our for loop straight there. So we only ever want to use let I equal 0, ever. We only want to do one declaration. For loops take 3 things. The first one is where do we start and that I initialization for that variable. When do we keep looping till, and then what we do between each loop. So no, we only ever want to do that one variable declaration there in that for loop.
I think just for one dimensional array has to be one index, right?
Yeah, so yeah, if you're
if you use the 2-dimensional array, that we can use I and j.
If it's in a 2-dimensional array, yeah, you can use I and j. You'll have to do nested for loops to do that.
Yes, two-dimensional, 2 different array. Yeah, index.
Absolutely right.
But it should be several different for loops, not in the same for loop, right? The I equal to 0, j equal to 0 should be in the different for loop.
Yep. It would be in two different for loops. I would be in a separate for loop, and then J would also be in a separate for loop. And we can keep talking at the end of the class. I am looking at our time here. We are getting very, very slim, and I do not think I just want to get through as much as I possibly can here. But all right, we're gonna have to keep going, everyone. Sorry, I had a lot of material here. All right, let's keep going on here. So help me out. If we have this for loop here, what do we need to use to separate each part of our for loop? What is the character?
Semicolon.
Very good, semicolon. We're gonna put those semicolons between each one of those. Remember, we have 3 parts. We're gonna have 2 semicolons always within that for loop. Awesome job. How many times will this for loop loop?
400.
Very good. 400 times. 400 times.
Yes.
What are the numbers that it will start and end with?
Start with 0, 399.
Very good. It will go from 0 to 399. Fantastic. Awesome job, everyone. All right, quick, fun question here. How many sandwiches do Americans eat in a day? 300 million, 500 million, or 800 million?
I'll go with the biggest one.
Oh my gosh, think we're that bad? The answer is 300 million sandwiches.
Oh my goodness.
We're not as fat as everyone thinks.
Wait,
All
sandwich
right.
per person?
That's almost
Right?
1 sandwich per person per day.
Right.
I mean, I had a sandwich today. All right. How would I create a variable called num of bytes left with a value of 5? Who can help me out here?
Okay.
Const.
Let.
Okay, yeah.
Number of bytes
those
left. Remember, const. So number of bytes left. We can always take another byte. So in this case, I'm going to make it a let. But always, it's going to be ambiguous to the developer. Don't take that hard. It's whatever the designer wants to do there. It's all up to you. So let number of bytes equals left. And then what do we put on the right-hand side there?
5.
5. No quotes because it is a number. Very good. Print out, I'm taking a byte if there are more than 0 bytes left in the sandwich. Then we decrease the number of bytes. So that is what we want to take a look at here. So let me go ahead and we're going to work her through here. We are seeing what in here? What kind of tool is being indicated that we need to use here?
Conditional.
A conditional, absolutely right. In this case, we're going to say if. So if number of bytes left is greater than 0, then we need to do something. In this case, I'm going to say I'm going to be taking a byte, and then it says to decrement the number of bytes. So I say number of bytes equals number of bytes left minus 1. The biggest thing about this is that this is a conditional here. And again, we're going a little bit quicker here, so I apologize, but I'm going to help you out. What is this called again? It is a conditional. So that's what we have here in this if statement. Now this is great, but if we have a bunch of bytes there, let's go ahead and explore what we can do here instead of continuously writing a bunch of if statements. So as we see, if we want to eat this entire sandwich, we have to continue to write if statements to keep taking bytes. So we start at 5 bytes, we go to 4 bytes, 3 bytes, 2 bytes, 1 byte.
It's going to be awesome.
Again, if we have a giant hoagie we got to go through, we're going to have a bunch of bytes we're going to have to code for. So in this case, we're going to take a look at how we can simplify this kind of conditional here. Now, beforehand, we were talking about doing counts. So we are counting something. There we go. So we're talking about doing number of bytes in a sandwich. Doing counts. We're just iterating over ingredients in a sandwich. In this case, we're going to talk about how we can keep looping through things if a conditional is true. If we're talking about looping while something is true or false, we need to use a different kind of loop, not a for loop, because remember, for loops are for counting. We're going to use something else. In this case, we're going to use a thing called a while loop. A while loop takes in a conditional only. As you saw in a for loop, we have a bunch of stuff in there, where we start, where we end, what to do in between, things like that. But for while loops, we have one thing we need to include in there, the conditional itself. Of course, then we close the parentheses and we have those curly brackets. And then just like the for loop, we do something inside of these curly brackets while this conditional is actually true. In the example we just saw, what we're doing is biting into our sandwich. So in this case, what we have right here is this if statement. We need to transfer this into a while loop. You just saw that we use the keyword while in a conditional. So to change this into a while loop, we need to utilize the while keyword first, parentheses, and then we take in the conditional from that if statement. So what we did, we just used that conditional we had in our example, and we plugged it into there into the while loop. So we close up that parentheses and we include our curly brackets. And of course, we include that code that we had inside the conditional inside of the while loop. Now, here is where we're able to create something that can loop as much as we want, as well as the conditional is true. Let's go ahead and take a look at that. Real quick, what I'm going to do is comment out the for loop so we can see this in action. What I'm going to do is say let num of bytes equal to 5. And then what I'm going to say is while num of bytes is less than, or is, oh gosh, where was my, yeah, number of bytes left is greater than 0, then what I need to do is that, yeah, it said on console log a bytes. And what we need to do is decrement the number of bytes. So just reduce it by 1. Equals number of bytes. Awesome. So let's go ahead and see what this does. We're going to go and run this once again. And what it does, it says, I'm taking a byte, I'm taking a byte, I'm taking a byte, I'm taking a byte. So we are taking 5 bytes here, and then our sandwich is done. This is what we're doing. We are continuously looping through this while loop until this conditional is met, aka it's false. So when we get down here, once number of bytes is 0, it stops the while loop. So we're able to do this while loop as long as the conditional is true. Now, if you're asking yourself real quick, what's the difference between for loops and while loops? For loops are usually used to work with an array. So if you're working with an array and you need to do something with it, a couple iterations, most likely you're going to be using a for loop, most likely. So if you're working with arrays, you'll most likely be working with for loops. When you're in a while loop, you're typically working with maybe user input, as in keep asking this user a question until they get it right. Or keep looping until this thing is done. Keep looping until my bank account says $1 million. I don't know, whatever you want, whatever your conditional has to be. It's more of a logical approach you'll take with while loops rather than for loops, which again, you'll be working with more data containers. So that's typically the 2 indications of what you're going to be working with there. All right, going to continue on here just a little bit so we can stay on track. One more keyword I want to teach or talk to you all is about this thing called the break. Everyone thinks like, oh, do we get to take a break right now? You absolutely don't. You got to keep learning this stuff. What break does is actually gives the loops a break. So what this does is that it basically is telling the loop, get out of there. You no longer want to be in that loop. You want to get out as fast as you possibly can. Break my loop. You can only also use break within loops. Let's go ahead and see that in action. All right, so if I just wanted to break this, maybe instead of 0, I want to say if num of bytes equals 2 and my dog name equals start, because start for some reason is eating a sandwich right now. What I want you to do is break out of my loop. And what I do is I have to declare the dog name variable up here. So I say start. So if those 2 things are true, so if my number of bytes is 2 and my dog name is start, then break out of there. Remember, before I press run, we have 5, I'm taking a bytes. Let's see what we get now. What? Liar. Thank you, Sean. I think my vision's going. I need glasses. I can't see anything anymore. It's like I can feel like an old kid. All right, as we can see now, I'm taking a byte is now printing out 3 times, and then I'm taking a break is printed out last. We no longer print out at 5 times because instead, when it is 2 and our dog name is start, which it is up here in our variables, we utilize that keyword break. Once we see break, once while sees break, it gets out of there. It moves right down here to line 27. So that is the power of break. Use it responsibly, because once a loop sees break, it will get out of there no matter what. Ellen and Derek, thank you very much for that. Yes, absolutely right. All right, so that is break in a nutshell. Again, I apologize for going a little bit faster, but we are finished with a beautiful corgi riding on a cosmic sandwich. Awesome, 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 awesome. All right, I'm gonna unmute you all here just for a second there. I see that we have one question. I'll try to answer that very quick. From Henry, how would you have it print no more after it stops looping? What you could do if you wanted to just do, and change this to Bella so it loops all the way. So I'm gonna go ahead and run that, see that it loops 5 times. What you can do is you can always just throw a console log down here and it says no more. If you wanted to do that once it's done. If you wanted to actually be in the while loop itself, what you could say is that if num of bytes minus 1 equals 0, meaning is this going to be the last turn? Say console log no more, please. Oh, actually, I can't do that because I already decremented here. So I had to put that decrement down here. Put that out, run that. And there we go. We still see no more printed out. What it does is it just checks, hey, is this the last round? Is num bytes minus 1 equal to 0? If it is, say no more. It decrements. This turns into false. And it gets out of that loop, just like that.
Could you have
All
made
right.
it an if-else?
Technically you could. I mean, technically these are 2 different cases because we're seeing here, should we break out of it or no more? But technically you can, because if it breaks up there anyway, the bottom case won't matter anyway. So technically you could do it else if you wanted to. Awesome question there. All right. Let me demonstrate stopping an infinite loop. If you need to stop an infinite loop, you need to press the stop button on the top of your replit. Loops are very dangerous. Make sure that you do not create an infinite loop situation. So in here in the while loop, if I just put true, meaning it will always be true no matter what, and I press run, look how many bytes I'm taking there. This is called an infinite loop. You will be stuck here forever until replit either dies of old age or, well, also if you just press the stop button. If you are in an infinite loop, feel free to press the stop button and it will stop, and there we go. So if you're in this infinite loop,
it wouldn't be an infinite loop if the dog name was started.
Correct. It wouldn't be an infinite loop if the dog name was start because it would hit this conditional here and it would break out of it. Absolutely right. I might as well target him. Yeah, Stark's gonna be so mad at me. And I press run and we'll see that even though we have the dangerous possibility of an infinite loop, we got to break out of it thanks to that keyword break. So great point out there. How does -1 equal 0? Joe, just to show you here, at this line right here, number of bytes technically is going to be 1. So we loop through here, we're gonna say 1 minus 1 is 0, and that is equal to each other. We come down here, number of bytes minus 1 is 0. When we come back up here is, well, it was number of bytes less than 0. When we come back up here, number of bytes would be then technically 0. 0 is not less than 0, this is false, so we'll break out of the while loop. So we actually never have a -1 ever in this example. So we just have to look at it as it's going down, what's happening with the value of num bytes. So I apologize I had to go through that a little bit quick, but if you come back in Studio Review, I'm happy to talk about it a little bit more. So I am gonna have to cut it off there, everyone. I completely apologize. I went a little bit over time. We had a lot of good questions here tonight. So I didn't want to skip out on that, but please feel free to go over to your small groups there. Again, Studio Review is going to be at each night. Feel free, because we did not, or since I went over a little bit of time, to stay in there longer. I'll give us a few extra minutes in Studio Review for everyone to commune. But thank you very much, everyone, for sticking through this. Hope you all enjoyed loops. Have a fantastic night, and hopefully I see you in Studio Review. If not, have a safe and healthy weekend, and I'll see you all back next Thursday.
Yeah, you
right,
be
thanks, everybody.
safe, Clark. You be safe. You will